This is as good as it gets for an Amakuni figure in terms of sculpting. Just that there is indeed a butt crack on this figure. Literally a butt crack. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven, today with a scale figure review. Yes, it is Nikke again, and this is my second Alice figure review after the one by Flair last year. Unfortunately, the one by Flair is not with me at the moment. It is at home, not in my studio. So I'm unable to do a direct comparison over here, but you can check out my review right up here if you're interested. That was a fairly popular figure that is getting a re-release. So for today, we are checking out another newly released Alice figure. This time around by Amakuni. So Amakuni is a brand that even though I have never purchased many of their figures, I'm confident enough to tell you guys to buy their stuff because they have a very long history, a long track record of making excellent figures that are almost flawless in a way. Of course, not 100% flawless because I did review an Abigail Williams figure by Amakuni many years ago, and the quality control on that was pretty diabolical. It was horrendous, but at the same time, it appeared as if I was the only person to receive such a bad copy. Meanwhile, everyone else loved that figure and that figure went up in value. So I was the unlucky one. So back to this figure over here, we are looking at Amakuni's 1/7 scale Goddess of Victory Nikke Alice Sweet Home version, going for around 21,000 yen for the standard version and 23,000 yen, more like 22,545 yen to be exact, for the limited version where you're getting an extra head over here, right? So the one I have on the figure right now, this is the limited version faceplate or head, and this is a standard version, and it is entirely up to you to get the standard or the limited one. Of course, I have FOMO, so I go for the limited version. I want everything. And I might display this Alice figure with this limited edition faceplate over here simply because it is a different face expression compared to the one I already have by Flair. So two different faces. Some variety, I suppose. Meanwhile, for the release date of this figure, 22nd of August 2025, just 2 months ago, a new release over here, and I paid around 1,089 Chinese yuan in H-Boy, a major figure store in China, H-Boy. So that translates into almost 23,000 yen, which is pretty close to the official MSRP of this figure. In fact, I have already forgotten that this figure is already out. I've forgotten about her. I just happened to see her in stock while I was scrolling my shopping app. And then I just threw her into my shopping cart and checked out. I want it. Yeah, I don't care about waiting for price drops or anything like that for this character over here. Meanwhile, for the height of this figure at 1/7 scale, including the base from the bottom all the way to the top of her twin tails over here, 26.5 centimeters, which is pretty tall for a 1/7. Meanwhile, if I were to deduct her base, starting from her left foot over here, to the top of her head on top right here, not counting the twin tail, 24.5 cm, which is still slightly bigger than the Flair Alice figure, which is around 21 to 22 centimeters including the base. So in case you own both figures and you display them next to each other, this one might appear slightly bigger. I'm not sure if that will bother you or not when you display both figures together. I'm not sure what to think. I do think it is a bit weird when one is bigger than the other when the scale are almost similar, but whatever. I just need to get used to it. So we now move on to the box unboxing process, assembly, everything. Speaking of the box, this is what the box looks like. You have already seen it if you watched my figure haul video last week. So this is a non-windowed box, and that is perhaps the only negative about this box design over here. Given the choice, I would prefer a box with a window, even though the protection of the figure is slightly compromised. But putting aside the window part, this is one heck of a box. This thing is rock solid. It is very difficult to dent. Even if I were to press on the box like that, this thing is very tough. It is good quality material, and listen to this. Yeah, the sound when I knock the box, that is the sound of quality or thick material. So this is very reassuring. Excellent box from Amakuni. We do have a shiny sticker behind and also in front, but on the back over here, this sticker over here, it is just a distributor sticker. It does not necessarily certify that the figure is genuine or not. The Japanese version, if you buy from Ami, it says Hobby Japan here because Hobby Japan is the official distributor of Amakuni stuff over in Japan. Here in China, they have a different distributor. That is it. So if you see this sticker over here, yes, it is guaranteed that the figure is genuine, but even if the sticker is not there, it does not necessarily mean that your figure is not genuine. This is important, right? So the box over here, a 9.5 out of 10. Very good box. Meanwhile, for the assembly process, it is fairly straightforward. You just plug the figure into the base, and in order to replace her head, you need to remove both of her hands at the wrist region, which is very nice. The seam lines are very nicely concealed. So head swapping is very easy over here, but there is one weird design decision coming from Amakuni that I don't quite understand why. So on the collar of her jacket or her sweatshirt over here, there are two long straps or strings. You need to assemble that. So when the figure is taken out from the box, there are two placeholders, two plain white plastic sticks. You remove it and then you push it in, those two small parts over there. This is very weird because this kind of parts, even though they are pretty tiny, they are not exactly something that will break easily during shipping because it is not unsupported, right? Unlike the ahoge of Saber, this single hair strand on top, it is unsupported, it is standing up on its own. Then those kind of parts, yes, they may break very easily if there is a physical impact. But these two straps over here, they are leaning against the body of the figure. There is some support over there, so they won't break. And I don't understand why Amakuni had to separate those two parts and make me spend 10 minutes trying to insert them into the holes in her sweater. It was a waste of time, seriously. Meanwhile, the stability of this figure, see, I have to say I am very impressed. Yes, it does wobble a bit because in the end, this is a figure standing on one single leg, right? But if you pay attention, when the figure does wobble, it is like the force, right? The flexing is transmitted across the entire leg and including this plastic block on the base over here. The whole figure is flexing when you shake the figure. So this means that this figure is very good in terms of stability. It won't break, it won't lean because there is adequate support. In comparison, let me bring in another Amakuni figure, a bad one in terms of stability for comparison's sake. Okay, so this girl's frontline figure, Amakuni, and I reviewed her last year, also plugged into the base in one single leg, right? But when you shake the figure, it is very wobbly in the sense that you can see that most of the stress is concentrated at the ankle and the foot peg over here, right? If you shake the figure enough, the foot peg might break. But for Alice, when I shake the figure, it is like the entire leg is flexing. So this is much better than this girl's frontline figure over here. And for that reason, the stability score I'm giving this Alice is around, well, the minimum is 7.5 out of 10. I would even give her an 8 out of 10 for stability. Exceptional for a figure standing on one leg. So you don't really have to worry about leaning or anything like that. This is a fairly lightweight figure as well. So now we move on to sculpting department, and this is nowhere close to Amakuni's best in terms of detail level, and we are talking about character design over here, not the quality of the brand. This one is the kind of simpler character design, which is something I would expect Amakuni to do a perfect job, and they did. So if I were to compare this Alice figure to the original artwork of this character and also the official product pictures that they showed us during the pre-order period, she looks identical, head to toe everywhere, no problems at all. Even the face of this figure, regardless of which one, this one or the limited version, it looks identical to Alice in every single way. The face of this figure is easily a 9.5 even out of 10 for accuracy. So this is as good as it gets for an Amakuni figure in terms of sculpting. There are no quality issues over here, no ugly gaps or seam lines, no excess glue leaking out from between two different parts, no mold lines of any kind. Just that there is indeed a butt crack on this figure. Literally a butt crack. So at the back of the figure, you can see this black line in between her butt, right? So this means that both of her legs are separate parts. They glued it together. But it is a very neat seam line. It does not look off in any way. And the only reason why I feel that it is a bit weird is because she does not have a bare butt over here, right? No bare or shiri. She is wearing pants. So by right, there shouldn't be a crack right in the center. If it was a bare butt, then a different story right there. So it is a bit weird if you are looking from the perspective of logic, but you never apply logic to anime characters. So we'll leave it be. And I don't consider this to be a flaw. It is just, the figures are being separated into multiple different parts this way, right? So now we move on to the paint work. I could not find any paint bleeding, no paint transfer, no scratches, and no bad paint work in general. Everything is executed to perfection with a nice, clear and smooth coating. You do get a heavy dose of shading if you pay attention to her outfit in general. There is some detail being added via painting, right? And her hair over here, I think it is made of translucent material and then they painted over it, so you get this slight transparent look on her hair, which is nicely done. Meanwhile, the finish on the pants over here, it looks like pearlescent finish to me, and I love pearlescent paintwork. They look shiny, they look very attractive. So I'm loving what I'm getting with this figure. Even the decal work on her back, on her straps over here, super bunny, super B. The decals on the side over here, they are all nicely applied. I could not find any issues. Overall paint work on this figure, I can give it a high 8.5 out of 10. I would even say 9 out of 10 is not a bad score. So the only reason why I wouldn't give her higher than 9 out of 10 is because this figure needs to be more detailed, more intricate to deserve a higher score. It is just a matter of the limits of what I can give to this figure in terms of the simpler design, right? The last part of this figure is the base, and this is perhaps the weakest part of this figure. Not because the base is bad, but because I compare this figure to other Chinese brands, and the Chinese brands are coming out with better bases. So what we are essentially getting here is a plain white disc base, but with a nice design on the surface and a nice matte-ish coating. I'm not quite sure what this coating is. It is not exactly matte. It is very smooth to the touch, but at the same time, it is not very glossy, right? So this kind of surface, you can still scratch it by accident, just that not as easily as the ultra glossy one, I suppose. And because of this finish over here, the base does not feel too cheap. It feels kinda expensive, even for a plain white disc. Not to mention the design, the decal on this base over here is quite lovely, simple, elegant, and very aesthetic looking. So not complaining too much over here. I can give it a maximum of 7.5 out of 10 for the base. So arriving at my conclusion for today's review, as a fan of Goddess of Victory Nikke, should you get this figure of Alice Sweet Home version from Amakuni? It is a big yes. This figure comes as highly recommended. If you love Alice and you love Nikke, this is a nice addition to your collection regardless of whether you like Alice or not, but I hope you do. What are your other alternatives? The obvious one is the flare one, which is getting a re-release. If you want her in her original pink bunny suit, the leather suit, then get the flare one. It is not a bad figure. And that one is roughly the same price as this. I think the flare version is around 21 or 22,000 yen. And then you have Tenitol for lower budget, which is not a bad figure. And you have the one currently on pre-order, Hobby Sakura 1x10 scale bunny version. But my prediction is that in future, Free Ink would do a 1x4 scale of the same exact one that Hobby Sakura is doing. Yes. And who knows if Hobby Sakura also makes a 1x4 scale in future when it comes to Alice as a character. And then for the premium segment, you have Tri-Eagle Studio. They have a 1x4 of Alice, I think. I can't remember if it is 1.6 or 1.4, but that is a premium resin statue, and there are also third parties out there. So there are a few choices of this character, different price points, just pick whichever you like. I would be keeping this figure and also the flare version, if you ask me which one to keep, which one to sell, because the flare version has a rifle behind her. To me, Nikke is all about pretty girls with guns, right? Just like Girls Frontline, for example. So an Alice figure without a rifle is a bit off to me, and that is why I will keep the flare version. So that is all for today's figure review. If you found this to be insightful or helpful in helping you to decide whether to get an anime figure or not, please do give this video a like and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content every week. And until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.